the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Hey, here we go. It is good to be with you on this Friday. Here's the question. Here's the tee-up question. Do you know the habits that lead to a happy life? Do you know that there are 7 of them? So that's pretty cool. You only need to remember like 7 things or do 7 different things. Not like there's like 412 things you got to do to be happy. There's just 7 of them. And, Harvard University has been studying happiness for 85 years. And they've learned a couple of things. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. And Arthur Brooks, I'm a big Arthur Brooks fan, he's also a professor at Harvard, and he teaches a course there in happiness in the business school. And he's going to help us unpack these 7 habits. Let's see what our good friend Arthur Brooks has to say. And this comes from the Arthur Brooks newsletter at arthurbrooks.com. So he says, hi, friend. The young adults I teach get advice all the time about sound financial decisions now that will pay off in the future. But they rarely get good advice on the life investments you can make when young, or for that matter at any time, that will lead to happiness in older age. It turns out we know what these investments are. So here's what the science says. In 1938, researchers at the Harvard Medical School lit upon a visionary idea. They would sign up a bunch of men then studying at Harvard and follow them from youth into old age so they could see how their habits early on correlated with happiness and health later in life. That sample wasn't very representative of the population, so the study expanded to include people who didn't go to college, their spouses, and kids. They followed all these people for over 85 years. Those results are a treasure trove. You look at how people lived, loved, and worked in their 20s and 30s, and then you could see how their life turned out over the following decades. And from this crystal ball of happiness, you can learn how to invest in your own future as well. So, what can you do? You can't control every factor that contributes to happiness dividends, like generational wealth or having mentally healthy parents. Those things help, but you can't control those. But you can control 7 big investment decisions pretty directly. Number 1, don't smoke. And if you already smoke, quit now. That one seems pretty obvious, so I can't even elaborate on that. We all know that smoking is a really, really bad idea. All right, that's number 1, don't smoke. Number 2, kind of related, watch your drinking. Alcohol abuse is strongly correlated with smoking in the Harvard study, but plenty of other research shows that even by itself is one of the most powerful predictors of winding up sad and sick. If you have any indication of a drinking problem in your life, get help now. And I would add any intoxicants. Now that, marijuana is legal just about everywhere, right? Anything that intoxicates you is something to, stay way away from. So, here's the deal, and this is kind of a scary thing as it pertains to marriage. Somewhere between 25 and 50% of all domestic violence involves alcohol use by the perpetrator, the victim, or both. So about half of the time when there's domestic violence, there's alcohol involved. Alcohol is linked to more severe injuries during those assaults and to more frequent assaults. So the more you drink, more frequently assaults show up. And men who are heavy drinkers are significantly more likely to perpetrate intimate partner violence than non-drinkers. All right, so alcohol correlates to problems in marriage, not to a happy marriage. Okay, watch your drinking. Number 3, maintain a healthy body weight. Eat a diet with lots of fruits and vegetables and moderate serving sizes. Avoid yo-yo diets or intense restrictions that you can't maintain over the long run, right? So this goes to the whole idea of, moderation in food and alcohol, right? And smoking for that matter, I guess. But the science is pretty clear. Obesity, people struggling with their weight have a higher risk for developing depression. Depression is negatively correlated to marital happiness, right? Studies show that about that depression is about 55% more common in obese individuals compared to people in a healthy weight. Being overweight can contribute to social anxiety because people fear judgment and how are people going to look at me, and I don't want to go out and I don't want to, swimsuit thing, all that stuff, right? So being overweight affects self-esteem and social anxiety. And also, obesity has also been linked to a decrease in cognitive flexibility, that's your ability to think, right? And to problems with memory, all of which is possibly due to metabolic and vascular effects from being overweight. Okay, so watch your weight. If you're carrying a few extra pounds, shed those extra pounds, right? Number 4, prioritize movement in your life by scheduling time for it every day and sticking to it. Arguably, the single best time-tested way to do this is by walking. So, I came across something, a decade or two ago, that the healthiest city around was New York because everybody walked everywhere in New York because the traffic was so bad, right? You just couldn't get around. So prioritize movement, walking, okay? And frankly, walking together is a really healthy thing for a marriage. Get a chance to talk. The other cool thing about walking is you're shoulder to shoulder as opposed to face to face. So sometimes that makes it a little bit easier to tackle some of the tougher issues because you're kind of moving in the same direction side by side, right? So some of the mental health benefits of exercise is exercise boosts endorphins. Those are the feel-good chemicals, and serotonin, both of which tend to improve mood. So walking puts you in a better mood. Studies show exercise can be as effective as medication for helping people with mild to moderate depression. For people who are suffering with sadness or depression, one of the best things they can do is get out and exercise, go for a walk, especially in the sun. Physical activity lowers cortisol, which is the stress hormone. That's a good thing. And it helps the nervous system calm down and reduces chronic stress and tension. Regular movement improves memory, focus, and learning by increasing blood flow to the brain. The heart's pumping harder and the blood flow's moving. Consistent physical activity leads to deeper and more restorative sleep, which also stabilizes mood. So get some exercise. All right, so don't smoke. Moderate your drinking. Maintain a healthy body weight. Prioritize movement. Those are the first 4. Number 5, practice your coping mechanisms now. The earlier you can find healthy ways to deal with life's inevitable distresses, the more prepared you'll be if ill luck strikes in your 80s. This means working conscientiously, perhaps with assistance from spiritual practices or even therapy, to avoid excessive rumination, which is wasted energy, and unhealthy emotional reactions and avoidance behaviors, right? So positivity and optimism. So some of the ways you can practice coping mechanisms. So you're like, okay, how do I do this? Okay, reframe your thoughts. Choose to see challenges as opportunities for growth, defeats as learning opportunities, right? It's not failure, it's feedback, right? So reframe the negative into the positive. Problem solving, break down a stressful situation into small, manageable steps. Limit overthinking. Practice mindfulness to stay grounded in the present moment so you don't ruminate on whatever's going on. Journaling, writing down your feelings, is a good way to process them rather than keeping them bottled up. Exercise and movement, talked about that. Prayer and meditation. Place your burdens before God. Better yet, give them to Him. Lord, solve my problem for me, okay? Read the scriptures and reflect, right? Brings peace. Receive the sacraments on a regular basis, especially confession and the Eucharist. And then learn how to turn your suffering into intercessions, into ways to help other people, right? So there you go. All right, that's 5. Number 6, keep learning. The more education or critical engagement, mental stimulation, right? A more active mind leads to a more active mind in old age, which means a longer, healthier life. So be a reader, become a reader. A lot of people, I don't like to read. Well, you know what? Build some time to read. Now, one of the things you could do is, if you don't like to read, is just set aside time each day, though, for spiritual reading. You nourish your brain and you nourish your soul and you grow closer to God. You can't love what you don't know. Spiritual reading helps you to know God, helps you to love God more. All right? And then number 7, and this is the biggie, do the work to cultivate stable, long-term relationships now. For most people, this includes a steady marriage, but other relationships with family, friends, and partners can fit into this category as well. But your primary focus, if you're married, needs to be on your spouse, which is the most important relationship in your life, bar none. So some tips on how you can cultivate stable, long-term relationships now. Number 1, reach out first. Don't always wait for your friends to call or text, right? A quick little, hey, I'm thinking of you outreach is a great idea, right? So reach out first, initiate contact. It's very complimentary when someone reaches out to call you and says, hey, I've been thinking about you, and I just thought I'd say hello, right? Show up, right? Be there. Celebrate the milestones, right? Be there when things aren't going well. Be the person I can turn to when things are tough. Quality time. Prioritize regular get-togethers, right? For coffee, a walk, shared hobby. Especially important in marriage. I talk about the 1% daily investment. Carve out 10 or 15 minutes each day to make sure we can prioritize each other over the kids, over the chores, over the to-do list, etc. Practice active listening. Put away the phone. Give eye contact and reflect back what you hear the other person saying. Allow the other person to be vulnerable without giving them solutions. Listen and empathize. Problem is when we're having a conversation with people, we tend to start thinking more about what we want to say in response or in reply as opposed to just listening to ask questions. So listen to ask questions, not to make statements. Compliment their strengths and remind them of their value. We call that affirming, okay? Small gestures, a note, a meal, some little small gesture, a little gift or a little thank you, shows that you really treasure the relationship. Pray for your friends. Pray for your spouse, to be sure. And pray with your spouse whenever possible, right? Spiritual intimacy is a beautiful marital intimacy, but you can share that spiritual intimacy with others as well. And share spiritual insights and encourage them to walk with God. All right. So there's some thoughts about how you can cultivate long-term relationships. So Arthur wraps up by saying, the best way to maximize your chances of happiness in your 70s is to pursue all 7 of these goals seriously. But if you could choose only one to pour your heart into, let it be the last one. According to the Harvard study, the single most important trait of happy, well elders is healthy relationships. As Robert Waldinger, who currently directs the happiness study at Harvard, told me in an email, well-being can be built, and the best building blocks are good, warm friendships. And I say amen to that. And if you're single, focus on meeting somebody new every single week. Take a real interest in the lives of others. Be a person that other people want to get to know because of your kindness. And they can just tell that by looking at you. And this is where screens get in the way. They kill friendships because they're so isolating, and they make it very difficult to make new friends. All right? So there you have it. If you want to be happy throughout all of your life, invest in your friendships and your relationships first. It is the most predictive of a long life and of a happy life. This entire episode of Marriage Unhindered is on the updated Relevant Radio app. The Relevant Radio app is completely free and updated daily with fresh articles, podcasts, and prayers.